Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the Dining Room Central Railroad build. If you are watching the previous episode, you will have seen me get most of the middle level framing completed. This week I'm going to get the helix done all the way up to the third level. Now there are a few other tasks that I had to take care of in the middle of it, so this video jumps around a little bit. Hope you'll bear with me and watch it through to the end. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get to work. Well, here is the method of making sure that I start the helix in the right place. I have a temporary leg clamped in here with another block of wood clamped to it. The red level is just a straight edge starting at this corner of the benchwork, and then I put my grade tool and another level on top of that. And then once I measured that gap to see what it was, I started building my wood hinge pieces. And here is the first one. Transfer the level to it, and we can see that I have exactly a 2% grade. Actually, the route of the track from that point around to here is slightly longer, so that will help me by providing a little extra length to get the vertical curve in at the bottom. So at least I know that I'm on the right side of 2%. I've already cut most of the pieces that I need because it makes sense to do them all in one go. But I just wanted to test fit that one just to make sure I got it right before I assemble 16 of them. Anyway, now that I'm happy with that, just make 15 more the same, and then I'll be in good shape to start the helix. Well, that is all the wood hinge pieces made. I got about halfway round and then I realised that the remainder needed to be taller, so I've got a whole load of blocks of wood which I miscut. That doesn't matter, it's not much. It only took a few minutes to make some more. Anyway, that is all I'm going to do today. It's already dark outside. I'm going to go in now and get some dinner, and I will continue tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, this piece of wood was glowing up overnight. It's a lamination of 2 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood. It was one piece, but I cut it down the middle and then folded the two face to face or back to back, depending on which way you look at it, so that the stresses will balance. It's been gluing overnight, so I'm going to take all the clamps off now and turn it into the supports for the double-sided backdrop. Let me do that quickly and I will be right back. Well, this setup shows my method of getting these posts plumb. I've got 2 squares clamped to the post, one in each plane, and then I put screws in the bottom. The masking tape underneath it is to ensure that I don't glue it to the cabinet. Anyway, that should stay where it is. That's one installed. I got about 6 more to go. So let me do those and I will be right back. Well, there is the frame for the double-sided backdrop. Note how the stiffener at the top is stepped back in about 3/4 of an inch from the end of the post. That is not a mistake. That is done both ends. And the purpose of that is to allow the rest of the post to be used as a support if I find that I need to attach another piece to help form the curve at the end. Anyway, with that done, I can now install this top permanently and get on with the rest of the railroad. So let me get back to work and I will check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, I have got most of the first lap of the helix installed. The transition at the start still needs some more framing. At the moment it just flaps around here. But I will do that tomorrow. It's time to go in now, it's already dark outside. The only other thing that was on my list for today was to get the brood tops installed. I'll do that tomorrow as well. This morning I'm working on the transition at the bottom of the helix. I built this small piece of framing, attached it in that corner, and I need a spacer block in here to get that at the right height. But before I do that, I have removed the clamps from the first half of what I did last night, so there is no attachment between the two areas. These will get screwed from the bottom, and then that can be separated for delivery, because the 4 helix will be too tall to fit through the client's front door, so it'll have to split horizontally. I'm going to put the screws in on this first half before I take off the clamps for the rest of it. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. Well, that is as far as I'm going to go with the helix today. I laid some foam roadbed and 2 yards of track at the entry point, and that was enough to allow me to get the whole of the first lap of the sub roadbed installed. I need to let this glue go nice and hard, and then I will lift it up just to make sure I don't have any seepage, and then put the screws in where the clamps are now. Exactly the same procedure as I did with the rest of the first lap this morning. I have plenty more to get on with today. Well, the last time you saw this area, I had blue foam all the way to the corner. I have now finished the top of the grade. Those screws will come out. That's just holding the glue nice and tight so that I get a proper vertical curve at the top of the grade rather than a kink. And that is the top of the incline from the staging yard. It's 2% all the way down, all the way around the outside of the railroad and through the single lap of the lower helix. A second time down that side, and that grade ends where the orbital sander is now, at a steady 2% all the way down. Well, that is the backdrop installed on both sides of that frame. I just stapled it in place as being the easiest and also the least in the way of spackling required. I have a clamp in each corner because the tendency is for it to curl, even with staples, and that will stop it from pulling them out. Next thing I want to do is get all the blue foam tops glued down. I still have to cut the pieces to go along this side, so that is why I have now cleared off the bench work. It's time to get out another sheet of foam, and one sheet will just about do that side. So let me get those pieces cut and I will be right back. Well, I have now cut the blue foam tops for this side. I cut a piece out of the end to allow for a solid block of wood. That is the mating surface for the swing gate, where the railed ends do need to be attached accurately, so I feel that the wood block is a lot better than foam. Now, I was planning on gluing this down with the gripper that I have showed in my previous videos, but it's no longer available. So I bought this brand. There were several brands available at Lowe's. This is one of the less expensive ones, and it says for all surfaces. So I figured if it doesn't stick to the foam, then I can return it and get my money back. Anyway, I did a test, and although it took a lot longer to dry than I expected, it is a very strong bond. I was unable to separate the two pieces, so I'm going to call that good, and this is now going to be my foam glue of choice. Well, that is all the foam tops that I'm going to do today. I've still got a few little pieces missing. I'm going to wait until I have some more big bits to cut and just make those out of offcuts. I don't see the point in cutting a brand new sheet just for those. Anyway, that is all I'm going to do today. I've got plenty to get on with inside of the weekend, and I will check in with you again on Monday morning. Don't go away. Well, after leaving everything to go nice and hard over the weekend, the first thing I've done today is get rid of all the temporary screws and the weights and the clamps. I've also made sure that I didn't have any stray glue in this piece, and I have screwed it down permanently. For the next few hours I'm going to be working on the next full lap of the helix. And if you recall from the previous series on the Keweenaw and Scenic Valley, that is a case of alternately doing all the steps, the foam road bed, the track, wiring, and then more sub-road bed. And the plan is to do one whole lap of everything today and then get on with something else. So let me go away, get busy, and I'll check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, I didn't do one lap this afternoon. I got on a roll and I did about 1.5. Anyway, it's now time to go in. But I'm happy with this afternoon's progress, especially being a Monday. It's my errand day, so I didn't get out here till after lunch. So I will be back out tomorrow morning. I'll check in with you then. Don't go away. Well, this is how I left it yesterday. First thing to do today is to remove all those clamps. The reason for clamping the top is that it meant that I did not need temporary screws at this level. All those on the lower level I will back out because they're no longer needed. But let me get rid of all the clamps and the weights and I can continue. Well, that is the next lap of sub-road bed attached properly and almost a whole lap of foam and track installed. I just went back inside for a bit because it was freezing cold this morning. My fingers felt like they were ready to drop off. Anyway, it's a little bit warmer now. I think soon I'm going to have to fire up the propane stove, get some heat out here. It's getting a lot colder a lot earlier this year than it did last year. When I started the Keweenaw and Scenic Valley, I did so on December 16th of last year, and I was out here. It wasn't cold, I had just a t-shirt on. Today is November 15, and it's already significantly colder than it was in December of last year. Anyway, that's just an aside. I'm going to get back to work, get rid of the weights, get some wiring in, and get the last lap of the sub-road bed installed. Let me do that quickly, and I will be right back. Well, the helix is now done. This is as far as I'm going to go with the track, because everything above that will be easily reachable, and the client wants to do most of his own track laying. The only reason for putting the track in the helix is that it can't be done afterwards. At some point I'm going to put the bus wires in and hook up all those feeders and run a locomotive up and down just to test it thoroughly. Well, I was all ready to climb inside the helix and install the bus wires. I even swept this area of the floor to give me a smoother area to work on, and then I've just discovered that I don't have any zip ties in stock, so I'm going to have to leave that task for another day. So I guess the next thing to get on with is finishing the benchwork framing in this area and around this curve. So I'm just going to change tack and figure out what I need in those areas, and I'll get back to work. Don't go away. Well, that's another piece of missing framing finished. This area in here will probably travel attached to the helix, although it might have to come out temporarily for installation. So it's not glued down at the bottom, it just rests on the legs that are toe screwed into the bottom frame. And these two pieces of wood sticking up hold a piece of straight backdrop, and then the curved backdrop will be sprung into the middle of there. Or I might just make it all as one piece. I don't know yet. Probably be easier for the client to install it if it's two pieces, at the expense of one extra seam to spackle. The middle level backdrop for this area is going to be attached to the upper helix all the way around. from where the wires are around to the opposite side. And these blocks that are sticking up above the top level are exactly the right height to hold the top of the backdrop. And the fixed backdrop will end here at this post, and there'll be a separate piece that will just spring in the curve between the two ends, the same as the other side. But that will be a job for another day, and in fact I really want to get the helix tested before I put the backdrop in, so it's not going to be tomorrow either. I don't have any wire ties, so there's going to be a bit of a delay. I might just work on layout designs tomorrow inside instead of coming out here. So I will check in with you whenever I get back out here. Don't go away. The first task I took care of this morning was to finish the formers for the fascia that goes in front of this trestle. The three that side I did some time ago. The four this side I've installed today. This one needs a hole in it to be able to access the bolt for disassembly and reinstallation. Those three screws there with the X's will come out once the glue is set. And then that will be screwed from the back where these screws will be accessible. The formers are still longer than they need to be, but I don't know exactly where they need to be cut yet, and also with that one going a full quadrant, it'll help to hold the fascia in the right place and make it easier to install, even though it will eventually be cut away. There is a narrow area of visible benchwork around the outside of the helix on the middle level. It's only about 6 inches wide, but enough to get a bit of a rock cut and a tree line, just so there's something to look at. And it's a nice long section of plain single track main line, so we certainly don't want to hide it. This end frame is bolted to the next section, and I've installed a leg. The rest of it is cantilevered from the side of the lower helix. If you recall, the division point is here, so everything below that I can attach to. The backdrop will be attached to the upper helix, so structurally it won't be a part of the middle level, since it will have to come off to get through the client's front door. Anyway, these brackets are all marginally on the low side, the idea being that I will put a block next to them to act as a riser, and then they'll eventually be cut off at the front end. At the moment you'll notice they're way too long. Well, I think that's all I'm going to do today. I have been working on the framing for the middle level around the outside of the helix. As you can see, most of it is done. But I have a couple of areas that I was unable to screw, so I have to wait for that glue to set before I can finish it. The ends of these vertical frames have to be belt sanded off to the right curve, and then I can get the top installed. The blue foam will go about as far as this last rib, about as far as this last joist, and then it will just be a narrow piece of sub-road bed around the corner. And just like the area at the end of the aisle, that will eventually be cut out when he's ready to install the trestle there. This riser is, I think, a little bit low. That's deliberate because it's a lot easier to add a spacer than it is to cut it down in situ. And then this thin stick along the front, that just helps to hold the fascia straight. That's all that one's for. Another thing I've done this afternoon is to get all the formers in place to hold the fascia around these curves. There's 2 pieces clamping in there, 2 pieces here, and this quadrant at the end of the helix in the outside corner. So once I have all the framing in for that area, my plan is to put the backdrop around the outside of the helix, then use the offcut from the backdrop to do the fascia in this corner, and then that will give this one area of the railroad a much more finished look. Well, I guess winter is back again. I have the door shut and I have the heater on. This morning's job is to get the helix wired up. I bought zip ties yesterday so I can get the bus wires in and attach to the side of the helix, and then get all the feeders hooked up the bottom. Then I will clean the track and test it with the locomotive before I make it any more inaccessible. So let me do that quickly and I'll be right back. Well, that is the helix fully wired up all the way around. Hopefully I'm pointing it still in the right direction. Now I need to go inside, get my control system and a locomotive to test it with. So don't go away, I will be right back. Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope to see you again next time, where I will show you the test of the helix. So until then, thanks for watching, and bye for now.